Did you know that St. Luke's University Health Network, based in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, has been recognized by the U.S. government as the highest performing health system in the United States for quality? You heard right. St. Luke's #1 recognition affirms our status as the top leader among the most respected healthcare providers in the nation, including Houston Methodist and the Mayo Clinic. To state it simply, if you want to receive the best care when you go to a hospital, come to St. Luke's.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Taxi!
Okay, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
So we got a whole bunch of things to talk about, money and politics. Maybe more money, more politics than money, but we'll see. Anyway, Liz Peek is here, fabulous Fox News contributor and syndicated columnist. And there's a chance Steve Moore will show up. We have an APB out for him. Who knows? So, Liz, just you and me. Just you and me. So I went, well, we did APB. We did Steve Moore, my God.
I am here.
Oh, very kind of you. WABC radio host of More Money, which pops up on many of these same radio stations right after this show. So I just want to read you. I just found this. I was thumbing through the New York Post, my favorite. Kamala Harris, all right? Big favorite of both of yours, I know. So she was on this podcast or something, Win with Black Women podcast. And she said that Democrats need to reconsider radical positions ahead of the 2026 midterm elections, including abolishing the Electoral College and packing the Supreme Court. By the way, there's nothing particularly new about that. Then Harris also suggested statehood for Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., and fighting back against Republican-led states' redistricting efforts, blah, blah, blah. So now then I was thinking, Liz, the redistricting, the Virginia Democrats, so their state Supreme Court threw out their redistricting plan. So then the Virginia Democrats, it wasn't good enough, so they took it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court threw out their redistricting plan, or they threw out the appeal on the redistricting plan. So that leads me to wonder, first of all, I don't know, maybe Democrats won't even listen to the federal Supreme Court, but aren't Republicans winning the redistricting battle pretty handily, and isn't this going to have some positive impact for the midterms?
Well, I think the calculus is now that they've picked up or will be picking up 7-8 seats, something like that. Virginia was supposed to counteract Texas by giving Democrats 4 or 5 seats and by basically making the Democrat advantage there 11-1 instead of 6-5. So, Supreme Court has ruled it out. Of course, Democrats are furious, even though, Larry, they broke the rules. I mean, they didn't go about it in the way they were supposed to go about it. So the Supreme Court even refused to hear it, and there was no dissent on that. So it pretty much tells you it was a lost cause. But I really object to the idea, and you see it in the paper from all sides of the spectrum over and over again, that Donald Trump started this redistricting push. He didn't. It started in New York. Talk to Claudia Tenney or Nicole Malliotakis about it. They tried to get rid of Nicole Malliotakis' seat by completely redrawing the lines of the Staten Island district that she represents to include a lot of minority voters. I mean, that's about as blatant as you can get. And New York and my other states have voted, New York voters have weighed in time and time again to say they don't want the state redistricted except by an independent commission. That's supposed to be how it's done. So Democrats lost on that. But Trump isn't an idiot. He saw that they were going to try again and again, which is what they've done. So he went to Texas and say, hey, guys, why don't we do your state? Because that is not necessarily representative of the breakdown politically of your state. And it worked. I mean, they went through the process legally the way it's meant to be done, and they work. So now you have this extra element of various aspects of the Voting Rights Act being tossed overboard by the Supreme Court, and I think rightly so, as the head of the court, John Roberts, has said, if you want to end discrimination, end discrimination.
Right.
And that's what they have done.
That's the key
now
point.
You have 3 or 4 more seats in Louisiana and various other southern states, which are going to come to the Republicans, presumably.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't think Democrats have much to squawk about, but squawk they will.
John Yoo, you know, a lawyer from UCal Berkeley, of all places, but he's a great conservative law professor. He's just said, talking about John Roberts and the Supremes, their goal is to basically take race out of all this, everything, redistricting, affirmative action, colleges and universities. That's the originalist position, or it should be the originalist, the constitutionalist position. Just take race out, which I think is a great goal. Now, Steve Moore, if you're still with us,
I'm here.
I just want a word on Kamala Harris. All right, Kamala Harris. She's back. She thinks she's running for president. How good would that be if Kamala Harris was the Democrat? Can you imagine? Right.
I'm going to write her a check.
I'm with you, buddy. I mean, I don't think I'm allowed to, but if I were, Judy, saintly wife, can write a nice check. I can't. But it's really quite amazing that she's still kicking around, and the whole crowd of them, Pritzker and her and Newsom, and I'm sure I'm missing Buttigieg. I mean, really? That's what this country has come to? Holy cow! It's just hard. I don't know. It's hard to believe.
Well, look, it's an indication of the radical left-wing takeover of the Democratic Party. And I think it's really important for Democrats to lose again in 2028. They probably lost the last 3 presidential elections. And remember what happened in the Reagan era, Larry, where Ronald Reagan ran against Jimmy Carter and won 41 states, and then they ran Walter Mondale against him, and he only won 49 states. And then they said, well, we'll get him in 1988, and of course we had a pretty weak candidate in George H.W. Bush, but he still beat Michael Dukakis. And finally, the Democrats said maybe we should move to the middle, and they very smartly nominated Bill Clinton, and they won. And it's important this is a very, very dangerous movement in the Democratic Party, what you were talking about, getting, all of these things about getting rid of the Electoral College, make Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico a state, and just evade all of the rules that we've been put in place for 250 years is very scary. And it's this kind of situational ethics that the Democrats have that might makes right. And if we get into power, since we are morally superior than Republicans, we can do whatever we want.
It's well said. The Reagan, you're right, it was Reagan, Bush. Bush was the weakest at the tail end, but he still won. He basically won going away against Dukakis, who actually had a lead at one point. So let me raise another point, and this is a good money politics. JD Vance, very actively now, launching, running, executing this waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption, which I think is going to endear him to a lot of voters in both parties, for example. And I suppose it strengthens his presidential hand, but I'm just more interested in the substance of it. This is a great issue for the GOP. They should push it now in the midterm elections. Can we claw back? How much savings can we have, Steve? That kind of thing. Because
it's huge.
It's huge.
And I agree with you. It's a great issue for JD Vance to advance, and he's done a great job with this. And all Americans are against waste in government, except the hard left, which, by the way, they're not even against getting rid of the fraud.
I know.
That part of it. They want the fraud.
It's a great platform. Larry, I think it's a great program for Republicans for many reasons, including the fact that it really shows why having big government take over more and more of the public activities is really dangerous, because there is not efficient oversight. Money goes missing, like a lot of money goes missing, and it just sort of essentially leads to corruption. I mean, if you consider socialism a failed program in Venezuela, Cuba, and other places, it's because partly of the corruption of that program. And you could just sort of there's a connect the dots. Light socialism also has light corruption, and we're seeing it in Minnesota. We're seeing it in other states, California, New York, et cetera, where they just don't care. They don't really care, and it's corruption that leads to politicians turning a blind eye to activities, which seems like what happened in Minnesota, where it's really impacting spending and tax policy and all kinds of things. So it's profound. It's not just a throwaway activity. This is a very big deal. And by the way, I credit Elon Musk with having kind of started this ball rolling. And as you know, I was hugely excited about Doge. I'm hugely excited about what Vance is doing. It should be done. Even the Biden administration said every agency should be looking at where the money's going missing because there's just not enough oversight. So kudos to the government for focusing on this.
Steve, heaven forbid the Republicans should have some kind of clawback deficit reduction platform. Imagine that. Deficit reduction. Reduce federal spending. I mean, it just it's fraud and it's corruption. But I think, if you put it into more traditional macro politics, it's the size and scope of government. Liz is right. Big government socialism endemically breeds corruption. No question about that. But
I would just go one step further from what Liz was saying. I mean, I want to see these people taken away in handcuffs and put in jail. I mean, they're stealing. This is robbery of them. And look, you guys start going into these, fake, daycare centers and so on, where there are no kids, and you take some of these people out in handcuffs. That'll be a deterrent. And it's amazing to me the Democrats, as I said before, they are defending the fraud. They think the problem is the whistleblowers, not the fraud people. That's how bad it has become. And remember, by the way, going back to Bill Clinton and even Barack Obama, and what did Bill Clinton have, make government work, all these, and some of them were, they were once for big government. They're for big and bad government.
How about...
can I say one other thing on this? There is a perception. I think there's a public perception that there's corruption everywhere. They look at Congress where all these people are making, like Nancy Pelosi, so much money, and it's inconceivable she's not trading on inside information. They look at government programs and they're riddled with fraud. It's a very demoralizing thing to the country to have all this stuff going on. I think really setting... no one's above the law here. I mean, setting yourself up to be the champion of the truth and cleaning this stuff out, I think that's a winning position.
It is, but you got to institutionalize it, Steve, politically. In other words, you got to figure out a way. So you lay it out the way Elon Musk laid it out a year ago, and it was extremely popular. Liz is right. So now JD's come back with it. And it's going to be popular, I assume. But there's got to be a way to claw back. You're talking about jail. Okay, I appreciate that point. But fiscally speaking, you've got to figure you got to figure out a way to claw it back and make that and talk about it in those terms. See, because it has a way. It's like an electronic wave. It comes and goes. All right, so with Elon, everyone loved what Elon was doing. $500 billion plus. I remember I interviewed him almost a year ago, a little more than a year ago, and he talked about $500 billion. What happened to that? What happened to that? $500 billion over 10 years or times 10 years? I don't want JD's thing to do this. We vent our anger. You throw them in jail, and then what? We still have a $2 trillion budget deficit. Follow me?
Yeah, well, I would. I don't know if you saw Liz and Larry, the really, really good editorial in the Wall Street Journal this morning about California's fraud.
Yes,
and they're covering for everything, under Medicaid, base lifts, and all this stuff that has nothing to do with health.
People are walking out of hospices healthier than they went in.
Yeah, exactly. And the
miracle,
miracle, right? And look, there's the General Accounting Office, which is the federal government auditor, found $200 billion in fraud in food stamps and Medicaid, and that's just the fraud they found. So that probably means the numbers.
And they all drove Rolls Royces to the food stamp place.
It makes people mad. It does make people. It makes me mad. I mean, that stuff, whoever it was buying Lamborghinis and stuff.
Yeah.
Good Lord. But they set this stuff up in New York State. We've all heard the ads for the last many years about if you know someone who needs care, you can sign up to take care of them.
Right.
Well,
Right.
It could be anybody. I mean, I think the standards are so ridiculously lax that is just in and of itself an invitation to fraud.
All right. Well, if you know someone that needs a Bentley, please dial in right here. So we were talking about Kamala Harris and others, and then we got to JD Vance's good work on fraud. Steve Moore, what's the deal with Ron DeSantis? You think is he going to run for president too, or is he going to go into the cabinet? I don't know where. What's happening with him? Well, we lost. I'll ship it right over to Liz. I don't know what happened to Steve Moore.
So here's what I'm actually in Florida right now, and I have been down here several times this spring, kind of canvassing people who know Ron DeSantis very well and who backed him pretty aggressively in the last primary cycle, whatever that was. They like him. Think he's an extraordinary governor. They think his political skills are not up to the test and that he will never be nominated for the presidency.
Mm-hmm. You know,
I mean, I think that's probably right, Larry. They all know he can't work a room. He doesn't remember donors' names. I mean, it's stupid stuff, but it matters.
Yeah, that exactly jives with stuff that I've heard and actually experienced. I know, for example, a very big donor, whom you also know will remain nameless, but you know that person too. Anyway, I think they donated, it was either $50,000 or $100,000, but could never get a call back, and tried many times to get a call back and talk to him about some issues. You know, Kellyanne Conway said this during the Republican primary season in 2023 and early 2024 before Mr. Trump got it. But he doesn't, you're right, he doesn't know how to work a room. He never argued the economic stuff, Liz. Remember the Wall Street Journal editorial, that 14.8 is different than zero. City and state in New York, 14.8% tax. City and state in Miami, 0. And that was also, it was a great editorial the Journal wrote. You know, how Florida GDP is faster than New York, and Florida has more population and half the size of the budget. He didn't, I mean, he had stuff to brag about on the economy, but DeSantis never seemed to. He got all hung up with Walt Disney and, you know, but I'll just say social issues in general, never the economy.
I think that's true. We had him speak, meaning National Review had him speak at a meeting in Palm Beach in November, and it was all about the economy, and it was very, very good. People said it was the best speech he'd ever given, and it gave some people, some supporters, hope that he might actually run. But Larry, I think it would be awesome to see him come in as Attorney General. And also, there has been talk that he could be on the Supreme Court. He is a lawyer. He is an immensely smart and measured person. I think he would be a very, very good person in that role. If an opening comes up, I'm sure he will be considered.
You know, that's interesting, though, the November speech you referred to. Because that was I said so many times during 2023, when everyone was saying how strong DeSantis was, and he was strong coming off a re-election, but he never, ever talked about the economy. And I said he's getting too tied up with Walt Disney and all the punishments, you know, and he had a good case. So you're saying he's learned, or he's now more adept on it.
Oh, I think, and I think as this huge migration of wealth has taken place from blue states to red states, and Florida, obviously one of the great beneficiaries of that, you know, it has become a bigger talking point. I mean, you're right. New York City has a $125 billion budget, bigger than the entire state of Florida. Florida has 24 million residents. New York City has 8. Right. I mean, that is sort of, in a nutshell, what's wrong with New York and what's right about Florida. They've kept their spending under control. But it's not just that. When they had hurricanes in Florida, he fixed what was broken. I mean, he's an amazing governor. So I hope he has a spot going forward. I think he's terrific.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.